Now I want to do a couple of problems where you're given a quadratic equation in the standard form, the ax squared plus bx plus c, and we want to rewrite it and get it into the standard form of the parabola. So I'm going to take an equation that looks like this, and then rearrange and move things around to an equation that looks like this. So we call this sort of the standard quadratic equation, and we call this the standard equation of the parabola. So I'm going to start with the standard quadratic equation, and then we're going to see how we can convert it into the equation of a parabola. So out of the book, I'm going to do number 5. This is section 3.6. So section 3.6, number 5. So here's the equation they've given me. It's in a function form. F of x equals negative x squared minus 4x minus 8. Now the principle we're going to use is we're going to eventually use completing the square. But before we start completing the square, you have to make sure that there is no coefficient in front of your squared term. You have to make sure there's nothing in front of the x squared. A number, or even here, we have a negative sign. We can't even have that negative there. So the way we're going to get rid of it, turns out I'll just divide both sides by -1. So when I do that, I end up with negative f of x equals x squared plus 4x plus 8. So now I've completed the first step. I have no coefficient in front of my squared term. And now I'm going to do my completing the square, where I take the coefficient of the middle term, I go off to the side, you divide it by 2, and then you square it. So 4 divided by 2 is 2, 2 squared is 4. So 4 is my special calculation. So now, here's what I'm going to do with it. I'm going to write the first two terms, x squared plus 4x. Then I'm going to stick my special calculation in here. My 8 gets bumped out here, but now I've added 4 to this equation. In the past, sometimes we would add 4 to the other side, but in this case, I want to do something different. I'm just going to go to the end and subtract 4. Because in the long run, if I add 4 here and subtract 4 here, I haven't really changed anything. So now, this is my perfect square trinomial, and I can factor that like we always do with completing the square. So it's x plus 2, that quantity squared, plus 4. And now I've gone from the equation written as a standard quadratic equation, now it's in the form of the standard equation of a parabola. And a lot of times they will ask you for the center, or they mean the vertex of the parabola. Of course, we know the vertex is HK. So in our case, looks like H would be -2, K would be 4, and then a lot of times they'll ask you, that's usually what they ask for, just the vertex. So this is how you take an equation in the standard quadratic equation and convert it to the parabolic equation. Let's do one more example. How about I'll do number 9 from the book. Oh, you know what? This is not correct. I forgot one thing. I forgot the minus in front of that f of x. So I'm not done yet. I want it to be f of x, so what have I got to do? I got to multiply both sides by -1. So this ends up being minus quantity x plus 2 squared minus 4. So actually my vertex is not 4, but -4. Wow, I almost lost points on my test. All right, so that should be correct now. Now let's look at number 9. And here's the equation to start with, so here's number 9. F of x equals negative 3x squared minus 6x minus 5. So I'm going to take this equation and put it in the form of the parabolic equation. First thing I have to do is I have to get rid of the minus 3 in front of the x squared. I don't want a coefficient there. So the way I can do that is to divide both sides by minus 3. So then you have f of x over negative 3 equals x squared plus 2x plus 5/3. And now I'm going to go through my completing the square. So my special calculation, coefficient of the middle term is 2. So 2 divided by 2 squared, that's just 1. So x squared plus 2x plus 1. The 5/3 gets bumped out. And because I added 1, now I'm going to subtract 1. Now I can factor this as a perfect square trinomial, and it's x plus 1, the quantity squared. And now I need to combine 5/3 minus 1. Well, 1 is the same thing as 3/3. So 5/3 minus 3/3 would be plus 2/3. And now, for this problem, I didn't forget. Now, the left-hand side, I need to get it back to just f of x. So I'm going to multiply both sides by minus 3. So I have f of x equals negative 3x plus 1 squared, then negative 3 times 2/3 ends up being minus 2. And now we have the standard equation of a parabola.